Alright, hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR Black Box Online Radio. Today we're going to be looking all at the OJ Simpson case, and very specifically, the theory of Jason Simpson. That is to say that OJ Simpson did not murder Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson all those years ago, that it was actually committed by his oldest son, Jason Simpson. This is a theory that has really been promoted by one specific person, and that would be the former investigator and author William Dear. He is the author of several books. The first thing that he wrote on this one was OJ is guilty but not of murder, and that was subsequently turned into a documentary. And then he repackaged it in the book OJ is innocent and I can prove it. He's also written some other things. He wrote a book called The Dungeon Master, which is a very, very interesting and tragic story. It's about the disappearance of a teenage genius. Once again, that book is called The Dungeon Master. And William Dear, or Bill Dear, I guess as he's more commonly known, is very, very good at presenting his information. And I will just say, when I first heard the theory that OJ Simpson did not commit these murders, I was kind of blown away in the sense that, sort of the whole no fucking way kind of thing, Like, what are you talking about? OJ's oldest son, Jason Simpson, committed the murders? Like, well, if he did, why is nobody else talking about it? And from the internet community, we can see that a lot of other people really had that reaction. Once you actually get into his material, it's like, just to give sort of a rundown, once again, this is information that's all available, all on the internet. It's on Wikipedia. There is the documentary, OJ is guilty but not of murder, on YouTube for free. Lots of great background things into this case, but the sort of nutshell theory that is presented by William Dear, and if I get anything wrong, I'm open to correction, it's that Jason Simpson, OJ's oldest son, was working as a chef, and Nicole Brown Simpson, OJ's ex-wife, had a plan to come to his restaurant with 10 friends. There was going to be a party of 11, and they were going to visit his restaurant. And that was actually on the night that she was murdered. So they had a table reserved for 11. Nicole and her friends never showed up. And then Jason Simpson left work. He went to go confront Nicole about why she did not come to the restaurant. And then, of course, Ron Goldman was also there, and sort of an argument kicked off, and it just conflict escalated. Jason pulled a knife, and then he, of course, committed the murders, first on Nicole and then on Ron Goldman. And this would really explain a lot of things. And that was one of the things that I really felt coming to the end of OJ is guilty but not of murder. This William Dear theory really explains a lot. It has a very clear motive that I would say. And, like the OJ Simpson motive is more than just he was very jealous, he was very angry, and, he did have a history of very violent behavior. You can hear the 911 calls. Nicole Brown Simpson calling 911 and OJ just freaking out in the background. But, again, that doesn't necessarily mean someone is going to be a murderer. Domestic violence and jealous exes happen in many times when behavior does not escalate to that degree. So again, we have the clear motive. We also have a reason why a knife was involved. Jason Simpson was a chef, and he always carried his chef knives with him. And this is one thing that, very typical. Anyone who's ever worked in a sort of restaurant of that nature would be able to confirm that. When the head chef always leaves, he always takes his chef knives with him. That's very standard practice, very standard behavior. But it would also give us a reason why we have the knife at the scene. And as well, one of the single greatest things that was in support of this case is Ron Goldman's hands were completely torn up from what appeared to be striking somebody in combat. Ron Goldman was a 23-year-old black belt in karate, and, it's like he was in excellent shape. He was an actor. He had a very toned, muscular body, and, he was in good shape, and it looked like he had been in a serious fight and put up an enormous struggle. Yet OJ Simpson had no marks on his face. He had no major bruises to the chest and midsection. Really, he did not seem to have any major damage to the body at all. And I would say that is the single greatest irregularity in the entire case. How did Ron Goldman get so torn up? Where is this enormous sign of a struggle on OJ Simpson? Where is all the damage that should be left on OJ Simpson's body? Because, they photographed his whole body. Does not look like he had a single blow to the face. Does not look like he even got scratched, with the exception of the major cut that was on his hand when he was arrested and first, questioned. He did have a very large cut on his hand, but again, did that produce all the damage on Ron Goldman's knuckles? Okay, so that is the sort of background as to how and why Jason Lamar Simpson committed the murders. And then the next following step is the William Deere theory we're going on right now, is that Jason Simpson messed up. He did something horrendous. He couldn't do anything except call his dad. It was the only person you could call. You can't call the police. What is the point of even calling a friend? What are they going to be able to do for you? I mean, he called his father because he thought Dad will know what to do. The William Deere theory does state that OJ was at the crime scene. OJ comes there to kind of, in a sense, maybe destroy evidence, goes there maybe to just sort of clear the scene, tamper with some things. We know that OJ was at the scene because of the matching footprint that we found. And, they really nailed him in the civil trial because they were able to nail one of OJ's footprints directly to the murder scene. All parties agree he was there the night of the murders. He was there over top Ron Goldman's body and Nicole Brown Simpson's body. He was there. No one really seems to dispute that. But the other thing is, William Deere also mentions that he does believe that the glove that OJ tried on at the trial does in fact belong to OJ Simpson. The reason why it did not fit so well at the trial is it was frozen to preserve DNA evidence. And during the frozen and coming out of the cold temperature, it shrank a little. Not to mention OJ was wearing a latex glove when he tried on. And it just barely didn't fit. It just barely didn't fit. And I think, again, most people are also in agreement of that. Okay, so that's sort of the whole scene. OJ was at the crime scene, and he helped destroy evidence, he helped tamper with evidence. In short, he was trying to take the fall for his son, because his son messed up, but OJ was refusing to let his son be tried for murder. Well, that's the argument for. And I have a feeling that this is probably going to turn into a long upload or a series of uploads, because the Jason Simpson theory is just so vast. But let's look at a few things why this would not be true. Well, Jason Simpson was working at at a restaurant called Jackson's, and he did leave work that night, and he dropped his girlfriend off, and supposedly when he left his workplace, he clocked out, but this night, according to the William Deere theory, he forged the time card, and he wrote it in by hand. And William Deere does have the time card. I mean, if you're listening to this upload, you've probably seen it too. Jason Simpson has, a time card with a handwritten date, which William Deere claims was the night of the murder. But that's just a claim. And that is one of the biggest things that actually hurts William Deere's case. On the time card, there are no dates. There are only times. He received it from Jason's employer. It was like the most relevant time card to the night of the murder, and that 6-part miniseries they did that supposedly tried to debunk the Jason Simpson theory in the final episode. They claim that William Deere is just completely wrong. There are no dates on the time card. It's just the date that Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were murdered is actually listed there under a different time, and that is listed in print. The point is, the time card has no dates. That's all you can say. The time card has no dates. They go into a whole thing about it should be two-sided, but they only have one side. It's irrelevant. The time card has no dates. So that really hurts William Dear's theory. Number 2. Originally, William Dear said that Jason Simpson murdered them with a chef's knife. Then, once he obtained a more double-sided, kind of mini dagger-like knife, he claimed that that was the weapon that was used. But then again, that is sort of a big inconsistency that he created this whole picture of a man, coming out of work in a restaurant carrying his chef's knives, and in the heat of the moment and in an act of rage turns on 2 people. Now this is going to something completely different. Now once he brings in the sort of, double-sided knife that is not used in any sort of restaurant preparation that I can imagine, that completely changes the theory. Now that's just more like somebody who is making this look a lot more premeditated, and I don't think that was what William Dear originally intended. The other thing that is going to really hurt the William Dear theory is no Jason Simpson footprints at the scene. There's an OJ Simpson footprint. There are the footprints of Nicole and Ron. No Jason Lamar Simpson footprints are on the scene. And I will say that miniseries did do a good job of trying to explain that what they thought originally was a footprint left behind was actually some corduroy clothing printed in the dirt and on the ground that belonged to Ron Goldman. So some people originally interpreted that as a footprint, but in reality it was, the imprint of corduroy clothing. But, that doesn't mean that is 100%. A lot of other people have looked at that and said, it looks like, some other kind of lighter shoe. Some of this is going to remain a mystery, but one of the biggest things that I feel that is really, really kind of thrown the Jason Simpson thing to pieces is that, he did not necessarily forge his time card the night of the murders. He did not necessarily leave work early the way William Dear reports it. Also, you cannot prove that he was at the scene, that he, directly him, Jason Simpson, was at the scene. And, it's like, it's now gone from something that seemed like a piece to the puzzle that completely fit, and that it made so much more sense than, the OJ Simpson version, which had kind of a lot of holes in it, because they could not explain a lot of things, like why that specific night did he just murder her. Also, like the peculiar blood evidence in the Bronco, but that just might be what it is. We don't necessarily know all the events that took place in OJ's white Bronco that night, and once again, with these new sort of developments in the story, it's very, very difficult to place Jason Simpson at the scene. And to me, I was very surprised. Like many people who explore this theory, it's almost just like you really feel like there's a lot that they left out in the OJ Simpson murder trial, and that it really is weird that he wasn't properly investigated. And once William Dear gets really into Jason Simpson's history about how he had a history of assault, he even assaulted his ex-girlfriend with a knife, cutting her hair with a knife, and it all seemed like it was coming together and started to make a little more sense. But I feel that there are a lot of new developments that have really just made this case into something that does not involve Jason Simpson a lot. But for anything, I will say that William Dear is a very entertaining author, and he probably should have been a novelist instead of, an investigator. He would have been, the next Stephen King or something, but he's a good storyteller, I'll say that. And anyway, what do you think? Did Jason Simpson commit the murders that killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, or was this just simply done by OJ Simpson? Is there anything that is left out in the trial? Is there anything that was wrong that happened? Was there any miscarriage of justice? Was there anything that just does not seem right to you? I want to hear it. Leave a comment. Talk to you soon.